tonight on Game Plan.
End zone. Dez goes up and gets it.
The Saints go out and get the best talent available in wide receiver Dez Bryant. We've got reactions to the big signing and analysis of the impact Bryant can have on the black and gold.
And I'm sure he's been watching from afar as just, how he'll integrate into this offense, and I think he'll be a great addition.
Plus, can the Saints make it 8 straight as they hit the road to take on Cincinnati? We'll break down the Bengals, take an in-depth look at Sean Payton's incredibly vast offensive packages, and look back on the 10 best plays that shaped the first half of the season.
From Fox 8 Sports, this is Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers, home of the best-selling truck 41 years straight.
It's the start of the second half of the Saints season, where we are on to Cincinnati. Welcome to Game Plan with Juan Kincaid. I'm Sean Pazane.
2 quarters down, 2 more quarters to go, and the Saints have their sights set on hosting playoff games. All they have to do is take care of business going forward. And that, Sean, begins with beating those Bengals on Sunday. But first, looky what we have here. The Saints and Dez Bryant have come together like a good old P&B&J. The two sides hammered out a deal following yesterday's workout, and now Bryant is a Saint after spending his previous years with the Cowboys. So the next logical question is, how do his new teammates feel about the new addition to the locker room?
Listen, Dez has been a really good player in this league for a long time, and there is certainly a skill set that he has that is going to be beneficial, and so I look forward to getting to work with him. I look forward to building a rapport with him. Look forward to getting him involved in this offense and just become a complement to, all the guys that we already have.
But I do know that he obviously wants to play. He obviously loves football. He obviously wants to come and contribute to a team winning and wants to get back in the NFL. And so that's obvious by the fact that he's taken visits, he's done workouts, he's done all these things. And again, I go back to trusting what coaches and the front office decide to do. And I know that in the locker room, look, we are guys who accept people from all walks of life. We don't care. As long as you're respectful to each other, as long as you work hard. Even the play on Sunday doesn't always even matter to us. It's about who you are as a person. And so I have no doubt, I've come in and out of this locker room. This is one of the best locker rooms I've ever been around, as far as guys who actually, respect each other and care about each other.
The Saints can certainly use some additional receivers to catch balls from Breeze. So far, it's been Michael Thomas and very few others from that receiver room. Most of those other balls have been caught by running back Alvin Kamara and tight end Ben Watson. Receivers Traquan Smith and Ted Ginn Jr. have contributed, but Ginn's now on IR, so Bryant's arrival is right on time. There's no denying just how talented Bryant has been and could still be in the NFL. The question, though, with him is his attitude. Can he handle not getting the bulk of those touches?
Well, he has to. Legitimate concern, but I do think this locker room is strong enough to handle his personality.
Now the Saints turn their attention to Sunday's matchup against the Bengals, a team that will be coming into this game without a key offensive piece.
True, but the weather is supposed to be cold in Cincinnati, so to think this game against this opponent will be easy would be a foolish assumption to make.
First things first with Cincinnati. They will not have all-pro and arguably one of the best wide receivers in the game, A.J. Green, available on Sunday.
It's a huge impact. He's someone that, commands a ton of coverage respect. Obviously, one of their better players, so it's hard to ask how it'll look. You got to defend the offense in its entirety, and obviously the offense itself will look similar, but how will it be without him in the lineup if he's not playing? Then that's hard to, it's one of their better players. So, I know that's always difficult.
Which means their offense will rely even more on quarterback Andy Dalton, who's played well in 2018. He's completed 63% of his passes and thrown 17 touchdowns to 8 interceptions.
Andy Dalton's a very good quarterback. I think, he's obviously caught most of the flack, for, their playoff woes and different things like that. That's just the nature of the quarterback position. But he's been a very good quarterback in this league for a long time. He's got good playmakers. He knows how to get the ball out of his hands.
It also helps to have Joe Mixon in the backfield, who's rushed for 509 yards in 6 games. The Bengals used to hang their hat on their defense. Not the case in 2018, where they're dead last in yards allowed, dead last in passing yards allowed, and 30th in points allowed. Still, players like Geno Atkins and Carlos Dunlap can be disruptive and wreak havoc. They also excel in the red zone. Overall, it's a defense the Saints must be ready for.
On defense, it's a physical defense. It's a front that we think is strong, stout. It's very active. They're talented in the secondary. It's been a while since we played them last, but we're diving into as much film as we can and getting onto this game plan.
Now, the last time the Saints were in Cincinnati, they won thanks to the no-brainer freeze. Remember that play? They got the Bengals to jump off sides, but they lost to that team when they came to New Orleans in 2014.
I feel like this is always a tricky game for the Saints. Not having, though, A.J. Green will hurt the Bengals' offense. It means their defense will need to be that much better against the Saints' offense. And based on how they played so far this season, good luck with that. Numbers-wise, the Bengals have been near the bottom of the league total defense. But this is a game the Saints' offense should have some success in. Bengals cornerback Dre Kirkpatrick, though, isn't too impressed with what he thinks the Saints bring to the table.
Yeah, they're pretty good. I ain't about to overhype them. They definitely beatable. But they did a lot of good things yesterday. I feel like they outplayed them.
Kirkpatrick's saying what he's supposed to say as a Bengal, that his defense will be okay. What else is he supposed to say?
Well,
we're going to get run over?
He's a confident guy. He went to Bama, no doubt about that. But the Bengals' best defense against the Saints may be its offense?
Absolutely. They got to hold on to the ball. Ball possession could be the key for the Bengals, but they struggle to run the ball as well, averaging barely 92 yards per game, which ranks near the bottom of the league. So with very little run game and without their best receiver, the Bengals will have their hands full on Sunday. Doing anything, I think.
Yes, and just curious how that matchup plays itself out. Up next, Dez Bryant has a whole lot of playbook to study. We'll take a look at just how complicated Sean Payton's personnel packages can be and how he flexed his variations on the Rams. Stay with us.
You're watching Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers, home of the best-selling truck 41 years straight.
Under Sean Payton, the Saints offense has consistently ranked near the top of the NFL.
And Juan, as our buddy Deuce McAllister once told me, Sean Payton wants to personnel you to death. That is so true. In this film study, we break down Payton's desire to give defenses a variety of personnel groupings, which was on full display right out of the gate against L.A.
The Saints' first drive went 10 plays, and on those 10 plays, Sean Payton had 10 different personnel groupings. Play number 1, an odd 31 grouping of 3 backs, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, and Zach Line, with 1 tight end, Josh Hill, and 1 wide receiver, Michael Thomas. Play 2, 12 personnel, 1 back, Kamara, 2 tight ends, Hill and Ben Watson, and 2 wide receivers, Thomas and Traquan Smith. Play 3, 11 personnel, 1 back, Kamara, 1 tight end, Hill, and 3 receivers, Thomas, Smith, and Cam Meredith. Play 4, 21 personnel, 2 backs, Ingram and Line, 1 tight end, Hill, and 2 receivers of Thomas and Smith. Play 5, back to 12 personnel, but this time the back is Ingram with tight ends Watson and Hill, and receivers Thomas and Austin Carr. Play 6, Taysom time, Taysom Hill, 2 backs, Ingram and Line, tight end Hill, and 1 receiver, Meredith. Play 7, more Taysom, but this time it's Hill, 1 back in Ingram, 1 tight end in Hill, and 2 receivers, Thomas and Carr. Play 8, back to 21 personnel, with backs Ingram and Line, tight end Hill, and 2 receivers of Thomas and Carr. Play 9, 21 personnel again, with Kamara and Line as the backs, Hill at tight end, and Thomas and Smith, the 2 wide receivers. And finally, play 10, 11 personnel, with Kamara as the solo back, Hill as the sole tight end, with Thomas, Smith, and Carr as the 3 wide receivers.
And that was just the first drive of the game. He actually had 29 different groupings for their first 35 plays. You get a sense of A, how complex this system is, and B, how much time it must take just to prepare for the actual groupings, not even the plays run.
So what you're saying is gone are the days of 32 right on 1 break?
A little more complex than that.
Saints are very complex on offense. But we were reminded yesterday that the roster can be ever-changing because teams are constantly trying to get better. The eventual signing of Dez Bryant is a sign from Sean Payton that he sees a position of weakness, but it's not the only one, which is why at the halfway point of the season, Payton's not even thinking about celebrating their 7-1 start.
No halfway report cards or any of that. None of that. The point is, though, and it's a good point, there's 8 games left. In other words, a ton of football left. There's a ton of things we have to improve on, and we need to improve on, or it's going to hurt us later.
One of the things Payton is really harping on is the red zone defense. The Saints are allowing touchdowns on over 70% of the trips inside the 20, which is crazy, and it's also bottom 5 in the NFL.
Not going to get it done in today's NFL. Yards are pretty irrelevant. It's all about keeping the opposition out of the end zone. Coming up, we go deep into the Dez Bryant conversation. What will his biggest contribution be? And is there any chance of him being a long-term option? We'll discuss next.
You're watching Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers, home of the best-selling truck 41 years straight.
Always nice to have with us almost every week. Josh Cassenstein from NOAA.com and the Times picking you. And this Dez Bryant pickup, what do you think?
I think it's a big move. I don't know what he's still capable of doing. I think there's a reason he's been a free agent since April. I think there's plenty of other teams that could have used wide receiver help before the Saints this week. But when you look at the weapons that they already have with Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, Ingram, Watson, on down the line, a guy like that, if he can do anything to just take attention away from Thomas and Kamara, he doesn't have to put up 500 yards in the second half of the season, but if he can just give defenses something to think about, then I think it's a successful move.
It's fairly low risk as well. What do the Saints really have to lose here? And if he becomes a malcontent, they can just cut him. Just walk away from him. And I think, they were making a Super Bowl run without him, so they didn't necessarily need him to make a Super Bowl run, but it certainly doesn't hurt their chances. So I think it's a low risk, and if it doesn't work out, so be it. They're still making a Super Bowl run, but if it does work out, maybe he's the missing piece. Who knows? Look, did they need an extra wide receiver? No, I think it's more of a luxury, but still, I think by bringing him in, you do add another weapon to what is a pretty diverse aerial attack.
Of course, the thing you worry about, he's used to being the guy in an offense. He won't be the guy here at all. He may be the third, fourth option. Do you worry about how he fits in here?
Hopefully that was spelled out to him, just because I think we know who the number 1 receiver is. And I think, but if he's productive, he'll be a quality number 2 guy, so we should get still, plenty of touches. And, you read his stats, you look at his touchdowns that he scored, he's a red zone weapon. So let's just say he doesn't get a whole lot of catches, but he gets a lot of touchdowns. He's still happy in that regard. It really all boils down to how quickly he picks things up, because if he doesn't pick things up quickly, he won't get on the field. It's that simple. But if he picks it up quickly, he'll have his chance.
So I would think 6 months away from the game should have humbled somebody. Now, humble is not the word a lot of people would use to describe Dez Bryant, obviously. However, I don't know that, his issues in Dallas, were as big of a deal as people made them. I think a lot of times the character issues are overblown. They were good because he was really good and because that offense was really good. And then when they got bad, it wasn't because he was a malcontent, as Sean said. So I think, that was a little overblown, and I think the Saints have a really good locker room. They talked about that on Wednesday. Marshawn Lattimore even said it's sort of like a college atmosphere, that they all get along, they feel like friends and family. So I think they're going to welcome him in with open arms. And I imagine that if he's a guy that can help, then the Saints are going to just let him do his thing.
Sean just said that the Saints weren't in need for a wide receiver, but there's something going on here with Sean Payton. He's looking at that group and saying, you know what, we're not getting enough, but that tells me that they did recognize an area of need a little bit. I think not high priority, but there's some need there.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the numbers, and aside from Michael Thomas, none of the wide receivers are contributing consistently. Traquan Smith only has 12 catches this season, I think 214 yards. Cameron Meredith, I think like 9 catches. Austin Carr, just 6. And you go on down the line, and they're just not getting open consistently. I don't know if it's an issue that they, are struggling with the playbook, because Smith and Meredith are both new. But either way you slice it, the Saints needed one more weapon. They're actually 7th in total offense this year, which is, pretty low when you think about the Sean Payton, Drew Brees era. So I think they saw one weakness, and they're trying to fill it.
And I'll just throw this out there. Alvin Kamara had 162 touches the first half of the season. I wonder if this helps him a little bit to preserve him for that back stretch here, because that's a lot of touches, a lot of wear and tear on the body. He leads the team in offensive touches. So I wonder if that played a role as well, that maybe get him a little relief in the passing game as well. So I think all those kind of things factor in. That's why he's here with the Saints.
A couple more things to get to real quickly. The clear advantage is the Saints' offense against the Bengals' defense, and that's pretty simple.
Yeah, I would think so. The Bengals' numbers are really bad. I mean, for a defense that's invested a lot and really been very successful over the last few years. I mean, terrible numbers. So I do think that's the key matchup. I do think on the opposite side of the ball, you know, what is the Saints' vulnerability? Well, explosive plays. They don't have A.J. Green, so I think that works in the Saints' favor as well.
Yeah, I do think they have a distinct advantage here, but I mean, they have an advantage pretty much every week with their offense against any defense. I do think the Bengals' numbers are a little bit out of whack defensively because they played that high-octane game against the Falcons. They already played against the Chiefs, and those are two offenses that really nobody has been able to stop, but the same could be said for the Saints, and I certainly think that A.J. Green being down is a big benefit for the Saints because all of a sudden, if you can put Marshawn Lattimore on Tyler Boyd, that just makes it easier for everyone else in the secondary.
The complacency issue, how much is Sean Payton having to guard against that? It's a team that's won 7 in a row. They're playing really well. Now you're going against a team that on paper you are better than. Do you guard against complacency in this game?
So, I mean, I think
that trap game, as they say.
Well, I think I could see an argument for that, and I've heard some people say that, you know, after such an emotional win over the Rams, and I think you could argue that the Vikings game was certainly an emotional win, that, you know, maybe this team is spent, and for some guys on the team that might be the case, but I just don't see guys like Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Cam Jordan, Alvin Kamara. Those guys are not week to week, you know, having to hype themselves up guys. I mean, they just show up and play well every week. So as long as the supporting cast, you know, brings their A game, I don't really expect them to have a down game. If for some reason they lose or play poorly, it's probably because the Bengals are actually a pretty good team.
Well, Bengals are an uncommon opponent. Could be cold.
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand why you would use that phrase, but I still think overall the Saints are just that much better. Yeah. So if they were to lose, it would be a huge disappointment. I think they get the win.
All right, well, we'll leave it right there with Josh Katzenstein from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune talking about Saints and Bengals on Sunday. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Juan.
Coming up, it has been a memorable first 8 games for the Saints, but do you remember the biggest plays that swung the black and gold's way? Chris Hagan has a top 10 countdown coming up. And in the meantime, we want to remind you that there is much more Saints coverage on our Final Play app, analysis, blogs, slideshows, and videos, and you can submit a question for us to answer by using that Final Word feature on the Final Play app.
Game Plan is sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers. You're watching Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers, home of the best-selling truck 41 years straight.
We're always looking for different keys to a Saints win the upcoming week. And here's one, their ability to stop the run. They've been the best in the league at doing so this season, giving up 76 yards rushing per game, allowing teams 3 yards per rush. The Bengals walk like an Egyptian, struggle running the ball, averaging just 98 yards per game. That's 28th best in the league. There have been so many big plays made by the Saints in their first 8 games that it's almost impossible to nail it down to the top 10.
But Chris Hagan has accepted the challenge, and he won't stop until he reaches the top.
Halfway through the regular season, several plays stand out on the Saints' climb to the top of the NFC. And what's most notable is that no one would have predicted that some of these names would be responsible for the most pivotal plays. That starts with number 10, Taysom Hill, on a 4th down against the Rams that was designed to be a pass. He makes the right decision to tuck and run, picking up a 1st down on a drive that led to much-needed points to set the tone against Los Angeles. Play number 9 was an easy pick. Drew Brees cementing his name in history yet again with his 500th career touchdown pass. Also worth noting, it went to tight end Ben Watson against his former team in Baltimore. At number 8, we head back to the Rams game. Already up by 14, the Saints were able to take advantage of Sean McVay and Jared Goff's aggressive nature when Alex Anzalone made an incredible interception deep in LA territory. It set up a Saints touchdown to give them a 3-score halftime lead. Number 7 also came in the Dome, back in Week 2. In a game where kicking became a focal point, Will Lutz was the man. His 44-yarder from the same distance that he missed earlier in the game gave the black and gold a 3-point lead to win it. As an honorable mention to the list, It's worth noting that the Saints wouldn't be where they are had it not been for Cleveland's Zane Gonzalez and Baltimore's Justin Tucker, each missing some big kicks of their own. Number 6 is the second time we see Anzalone making an appearance. He and P.J. Williams forced a game-changing fumble in Minnesota, jarring the ball from Adam Thielen, which led to a big recovery and return from corner Marshawn Lattimore, which set up a Saints touchdown. Halfway through the list, Alvin Kamara makes his first appearance. And what a game he had in New York, capped off by a 49-yard touchdown to ice it. It was part of his career high, 134 yards on the ground. Number 4 is another example of the Saints getting production from unlikely places. P.J. Williams was in the right place at the right time yet again, all over Stephon Diggs and picking off Kirk Cousins. He'd return at the distance to take the air out of Bank of America Stadium as the Saints crushed Minnesota. The top 3 you might be able to guess, starting in the Dome. On the brink of breaking the all-time passing record, Brees did that and then some with a 62-yarder to Traquan Smith, a moment that caused him to stop the game and a moment no one will soon forget. Number 2 is a two-parter with 2 quarterbacks making some outstanding plays against the Falcons. First, Taysom Hill, facing a 3rd and 2 on a drive where the Saints had to get points. He keeps the option and stretches, barely getting the first down to keep the black and gold moving. Only Brees could top that, and he did it on the same drive with a spin move unlike any other we've ever seen from number 9 to get into the end zone and tie the game up. And our top play, none other than Brees to Michael Thomas to bury the Rams last Sunday. Taking advantage of single coverage, Thomas went 72 yards past Marcus Peters to give the Saints a 10-point cushion. And then he took it to the next level with the celebration of the year. Vintage Joe Horn pulling out the flip phone. Of course, there were several others that didn't make the list. For those extras, head on over to the Final Play app. And if you have some you think we missed, go ahead and submit them in the Final Word feature. Reporting for Game Plan, I'm Chris Hagan.
We've got a lot more football on Fox 8 this week, continuing tomorrow night with the Panthers and Steelers. Keep an eye on that one. Friday, we switch to the high school gridiron for our special playoff edition of Fox 8 Football Friday. Start time, 10:18. Sunday morning, wake up with us on Fox 8 Live Tailgate at 10 a.m., getting you ready for kickoff for the Saints and Bengals at high noon. Our reports begin on Fox 8 News at 9, leading up to the final play at 10:30.
And of course, you can always get in touch with us using the Final Word feature on the Final Play app. That will do it for us. Thank you for watching Game Plan, and thanks to everyone here at Fox 8 for their contributions. Our next newscast is bright and early.
Is it still 4:30 in the morning?
4:30 in the morning.
Oh, man.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.